You're asking the drug to do something that's impossible.
Does it get into muscle mitochondria?
No, it doesn't get into muscle at all.
This is the face Peter Attia made after realizing he was wrong about metformin for years. In fairness, I was wrong too. In fact, I think most people had this misconception about metformin. This story starts in 2014 when a study by Bannister came out saying that the diabetics on metformin therapy lived longer than the non-diabetics who were not taking metformin. This is major. We would expect, at best, that diabetics controlling their blood sugar with metformin would live just as long as their healthy counterparts. But if they're living longer, that must mean that taking metformin could significantly boost life expectancy, even if you're a non-diabetic. The longevity world paid attention. Suddenly, biohackers who count every calorie and never eat sugar, some of the healthiest people in the world, started taking metformin, hoping that they were going to live longer because of this drug. But we were disappointed when, in 2022, the study attempting to replicate this finding failed. Keyes pointed out two major problems with Bannister's original study. First, the people in the metformin group were immediately eliminated from the study if they added another medication to treat their diabetes. So if the patient's blood sugar was growing worse during the study and I had to add a medication to their metformin, they were thrown out of the study. This selects for only the healthiest metformin users, and it ignores those whose diabetes was growing worse despite taking metformin. Second, the people in the control group, those who were not taking metformin, were immediately eliminated if they developed diabetes during this study. Given that diabetes becomes more and more common as you age, Bannister introduced a bias that selects for the people who died before getting diabetes. After accounting for those biases and running the study again, they found what most people expected to be true before Bannister's 2014 study. And that is that non-diabetics live longer than diabetics. I was disappointed that metformin was not this magical longevity pill, but getting to the truth is what matters. It is important. The TAME trial aims to answer the metformin and longevity question once and for all. And we're still waiting for that study to get funded. But why not take it just in case, waiting for the updated science? We know that metformin is a safe drug. Well, that's where the details matter. The reason metformin lowers blood sugar is because it helps pull glucose from the blood serum, from the bloodstream into the cell. This happens because metformin partially blocks complex 1 of the mitochondria, and it increases the action of the glucose converting to lactic acid in your cell. I've used this diagram to teach the function of metformin for years. I always use a muscle cell in the images because that's what I think about when I teach it. This GLUT4 receptor is concentration dependent, and as long as the glucose outside the cell is higher than the ones inside the cell, glucose rushes in through this receptor. We keep that gradient strong by rapidly flipping glucose to lactate, and metformin pushes this reaction by crippling the flow of energy after lactate is made, and we can measure it. If you're on metformin and I prick your finger, we can see your resting lactate has risen. In fact, it's dose dependent. The more metformin I give you, the higher the lactate goes. I'm willing to cripple the power flowing through your mitochondria with the use of metformin to help you lower blood sugar. It's that important. I've told patients metformin decreases the power inside your muscle cells, but it's worth it to have that possibility of longevity and the lowered blood sugar, only that's not true. This is where everyone got it wrong. Me, Peter Attia, most doctors, except Dr. Ralph DeFronzo. He has reminded all of us that not a single molecule of metformin has ever entered a muscle cell. Never. The receptor needed for metformin to enter the cell is an organic cation transporter that is not found on our muscle cells. It is found on every liver cell, and that's where metformin is the most effective. Now, I knew that metformin's effect was mostly in the liver, but I was mistaken to imagine it's going into the muscle cells and it's doing that thing that I've been warning patients about for 20 years. It does not have permission to get into those cells, therefore cannot lower the power of a muscle cell. Metformin accumulates in the liver, and among other mechanisms, it lowers that blood sugar by inhibiting gluconeogenesis. That's where the liver makes glucose. The drug then gets filtered out through your kidneys and you pee it out. It cannot raise lactic acid in your muscle cells because it's impossible for it to enter that cell. Those higher lactic acid levels that we see in your serum when you're taking metformin is from the increased turnover of glucose into lactate inside your liver cells. Only the liver cells. And this is a really good idea if your blood sugar is too high. But is metformin still a good idea for anti-aging if you don't have high blood sugar? Not necessarily. There are still people who choose to take it purely for longevity, including billionaire biohacker Brian Johnson. But right now, I don't have enough confidence in that evidence to recommend taking it if your blood sugar is under control. If your blood sugar isn't controlled, metformin is still one of the cheapest and safest drugs to help you with that, along with these 3 lifestyle interventions. Click here to see how I lower stubborn blood sugar. See you there.